Well, everybody's heard about the bird. The bird's a winner, well, a bird.
Grown men watch this shit?
A podcast about indie wrestling.
Bird is a winner, well, a bird. Well, a bird is a winner, well, a bird. The bird's a winner, well, a bird. Well, a bird is a winner, well, a bird.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to...
Grown men watch this shit?
Yes, grown men watch this shit. We are officially up to episode 3.
Indeed, indeed.
Yeah, and...
they say 3 is the magic number, Chris.
They do. I mean, everything good comes in 3s, right? Everything bad comes in 3s? I don't know.
I think actually 3 is pretty intrinsic in the world, and they both line up for good and bad. But in this case, 3rd episode of our show, that's a good thing.
Also, quite a thing in wrestling. Everything's in 3s. You know, you got the 3 count. You've got the 3 drops of the arm when the dude's going to sleep. All of the spots with the taking a punch and bump and all that kind of stuff on the comebacks. It's all in 3s. So
you got the group 3 count, the greatest wrestling stable of all times.
Indeed, with the greatest dancing mascot of all time with Tank Abbott.
Oh yes. I loved me some WCW back then, and when he pulled a knife, I forget he pulled a knife on some guy, but during the match he has a knife to some guy's throat on the outside. I'm like,
awesome.
Man, it's just fantastic that wrestling goes there.
I love that
Not
shit
nowadays.
so much.
Not nowadays.
I don't feel like nearly enough people have enough love for 3 count and their sweet epic feud with the Young Dragons or the Jung Dragons. I never actually got to work out.
The translation is young. Yes, young.
Yeah.
I think they made jokes about that to like kind of overplay how they don't understand Japanese culture or whatever. So no worries. No fault on y'all for that one. Honestly, that's my jam. WCW. That whole era, even people constantly clown on how bad it was. I'm like, but if you sat through it, the gems of how awful it was, it could be quite fucking hilarious.
Oh, I will at all times like way more enjoy that than like the monotony of what's on Monday nights these days. I way prefer a car crash rather than just boring nothingness.
Agreed, 100%.
Oh yeah. All right. Well, we have a lot to get to today. So normally, you know, we just continue this awesome banter throughout. But I mean, today is a big day. We should we? I mean, I guess we've already done the announcement. If you have read the text that's going to be accompanying this podcast, however, this is going to be our debut interview for the show. What a day, my friend!
Yes, sir. They come quick. These new goals that we're setting. We've made 1 show, 2 shows. Now, first interview on the 3rd show. We're progressing quite well.
I initially thought that we'd run a bit further before the first interview, but these things happen, and I try to do a thing in life where I don't say no to anything. So
understood. It's a trial by fire, sir. And
exactly.
The people will see that we're bringing in your native countryman JONAH ROCK to the show.
Oh yeah, I mean, of all the people that we could, bring on as the first guest, I'm really happy that we're able to have both an Australian, but also someone that I have a little bit of backstory with myself, as we'll get into when we get this interview going. So yeah, I mean, it's so cool, and obviously everyone knows just how much JONAH is blowing up right now. He's like in the main event picture of PWG right now. That is insane for, like, if you said an Australian was going to do that in even a year or 2 ago. It's crazy.
Yeah, his win-loss record in PWG, I was taking a look, is pretty impressive, especially with him working multiple shows with multiple days of those shows. So it gets quite taxing the number of matches, but this guy has managed to, I think he has a winning record overall, so that's pretty impressive.
Oh yeah. But yeah, we'll get more into that in the actual chat. But yeah, everyone, hope you're equally excited to get that bad boy going. But before that, we wanted to cover a little bit of the current news. There's so much news this week.
Yes.
It's really annoying to me when we have this great interview line up and then all this bloody news happens. Ugh.
Well, we can always touch base on the really, really important things, and I feel there's been some monumental and really, for some people, life-changing news that has taken place over the last couple of days.
Oh, yeah.
Let's jump into the biggest thing that's occurred probably, and I think everyone's really, really excited about this, is the potential return to the wrestling of David Arquette. That is the biggest news of the day.
Easily. Easily.
Challenge went out on Twitter. Mr. Arquette was challenged by one Human Tornado for a match at the Gathering of the Juggalos, nonetheless. And
So
Mr. Arquette, he's accepted by saying, and I quote, "I'm down."
Beautiful. And
such a definitive.
How great does that tie into our chat about the awesomeness of late 90s WCW?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Recently, not to toot my own horn, I was lucky enough to be followed on the Twitter by one David Arquette.
Oh, that is a moment, sir. I hope you reveled in it appropriately.
Well, we're planning the new Ready to Rumble feature that'll be coming out soon, so look forward to that. But man, David Arquette, I saw he was back into training and stuff. That's really intrigued me. And
oh yeah.
Then I see that he's actually taking it super serious, where he actually wants to get back into the wrestling ring, not just training and stuff. So
yeah,
what do you think about this, man?
He did this like announcement before the Humo Tornado thing even happened, right? That he was like wanting to come back and avenge his maybe negative perception that some wrestling fans have of him. Definitely not me. I think he's one of the legends of our sport. But yeah, I'm really excited about it. Were you at that Wrestling Revolver Pancakes and Pile Drivers show over WrestleMania weekend by any chance?
I was not, unfortunately. Was he in attendance?
He was. The best thing. So I'm there at the show, and it was a really fun show. Of all of the shows, just from start to finish, this was probably the most just everything was fun. At the awesome Sugar Mill venue. Attendance was real good too. I was there because my buddy Mark Davis, as we've spoken about previously, was working a match tagging against Tanahashi and Juice Robinson. I mean, what the hell? Craziness. But then Davis texts me from the back and he's like, "Hey man, guess who's here?" And it's David Arquette. I'm like, what the fuck? And then, no joke, at the end of the show, after Davis... he worked Tanahashi on the Rev Pro show. So this was actually, he was in a crazy ladder match main event on this show, which was awesome, by the way. But then after the main event, David Arquette comes out and says that next year at WrestleMania weekend he's going to be wrestling, and he challenges everyone and does this awesome promo burial of WWE for walking his prestigious WCW world title through the mud in the preceding decade. Loved it.
Fantastic.
So great. I got so much love for David Arquette. Hey.
That would be such a great event, especially because I think we talked about before, that particular Pancakes and Pile Drivers event, they banned the use of syrup, which just is possibly one of the greatest stories I've ever heard about a wrestling event, one that's based around pancakes and waffles, and the syrup is banned.
Yeah, apparently we have some piece of shit fans last year that ruined it for everybody. So we got pancakes. We even got a pile driver at the end of the main event. The besties of the world of AEW fame. The actual finish of the ladder match involved a double pile driver because they don't give a fuck.
Show was over.
Yeah, what's gonna happen? But yeah, then the whole thing was no bloody maple syrup. How do you have pancakes without maple syrup? I even texted Davis. I was like, hey buddy, can you get me that worker maple syrup special? Apparently the wrestlers got to have maple syrup. Fans did not. And I did not, sadly. I missed out. Very upset.
Well, anyway, all that and David Arquette. I'm excited to see how this turns out. It's one of those things where I honestly, when I heard that he donated I think all of his income from WCW to, I believe, was it Benoit's family or somebody, something to that thing. He definitely
definitely a charitable cause. All of it was given it back. Maybe it was that thing that Dawn Marie was doing a while back and trying to raise money for some of the veteran wrestlers, or it was one of those kind of thing where it's basically giving back to the industry. Yeah. Speculation. So good. Yeah. So that's awesome.
Welcome back, David.
Mm-hmm.
Congrats, sir.
Yeah. For me too. Just quietly, Ready to Rumble's got to be one of the greatest wrestling films in history. I mean, it's straight up just like The Wrestler with Mickey Rourke and Ready to Rumble, like head to head.
Foreign objects. Everyone knows. All right. Well, the other really big news that we have to speak of is actually really tremendous that it fell in the favor of these two gentlemen. The CM Punk and Colt Cabana case has fallen in their favor. All charges dropped. They'll be paying nothing, which, if anything went bad for CM Punk, of course, it's going to be detrimental. Had anything happened in that way for Colt Cabana, that would have been, I mean, crippling. The guy, I know he has a good amount of money, but millions of dollars, that's going to be...
Yeah. I mean, I would have thought that if things came down to it, Punk probably would have taken care of a lot of that for Colt. But, I mean, regardless, like, it is so much better the way it has ended up. Justice has prevailed. I honestly was so happy when I read that verdict. I mean, I was reading throughout all of the jury or the reports from WrestleZone. They actually had really comprehensive reporting of it, which was great to see.
Nick Hausman?
Yeah, he did an awesome job. Almost like felt like you were actually there. Really in depth. And yeah, it was just interesting to see the way that each of the defense and that were taking their approach to the lawsuit and everything, and how the different depositions went down. I mean, I guess the main thing that came out pretty early on was the fact that realistically there were no damages whatsoever to Dr. Amann. I mean, seriously,
it makes no sense.
Yeah,
like honestly, this guy is he's not treating the general public. He works for the WWE. He's still employed with the WWE.
Yeah, I believe he's making significantly more money with WWE now than he was then. So
yeah, good points. It's not like this guy is memes online are not. No one who's looking for let's say he leaves the WWE. No one who's looking for the doctor is jumping online and saying, you know what, I see memes about pro wrestling. I don't think I should touch this doctor here.
Yeah.
No one is looking for medical
especially from the opinion of, did you hear the name of the
Mike Litoris?
Mike Litoris.
Oh my god.
Or Mike Litoris, I don't know. Either way, so good. And apparently like the jury actually like popped when that was
oh
announced.
My god, that's awesome.
And the DA, I mean, Punk's defense in the closing argument made a little like snide joke about how important the the opinion of the Mike Clitorises of the world. I thought it was awesome.
Yeah, like who said you guys could be so damn funny?
Yeah.
That was so great.
It was quite entertaining.
My personal part of the whole case was even though, it's pretty speculated that, and it's been said before, that's the CM and the CM Punk stood for Chick Magnet, despite Punk's constant
because there were quite
jokery.
A few out there, we had Chick Magnet, we had Cookie Monster.
That's my favorite.
Yeah, there were a few different ones. My favorite was
Chicago
C. Montgomery. I enjoyed that. Yeah, the Mr. Burns thing. But
yeah, he had to go on record and let everyone know that it in fact stands for Chick Magnet. What a hilarious thing to have to say on the stand.
Yeah, so good. Yeah, it's just hilarious. Sometimes the justice system is entertaining between a lot of boringness and banality.
Now, a lot of speculation is some people feel that Mr. Amann or Amann or whatever was kind of pressured or maybe directed into filing this lawsuit from his employers.
Well, I mean, it's pretty...
Any validity?
I definitely think so. I mean, at the very least, it's obvious, it was never denied at all that they were bankrolling the whole thing. And yeah, a lot of little bits and pieces, from the outside perspective, the whole thing of bringing Colt into the case
nonsense
was like bullshit, and clearly an attempt to get to Punk and to ruin these guys' friendship. It's such a shitty move. And the jury apparently at the end of the lawsuit came up, or a bunch of the members of the jury came up to Colt and told him they couldn't even understand why he was involved in the lawsuit.
Yeah. And you can see these two guys just being put through the ringer. Colt, constantly an upbeat guy, but you could definitely tell this 6 days wearing this suit and dealing with this bullshit was trying on the guy.
And even this whole thing's been going on for 4 years. How has that got to wear on you to have 4 years of knowing that this thing is there and could ruin your life. Did you see, like, at the end of it, the damages that they were seeking was like $4 million, like $1 for every listen of the podcast. Fucking so stupid. But yeah, just it was awesome to see that the little guy won. You know, a lot of these cases and a lot of the other cases against WWE in history, where there's been a lot of legitimate gripes, like the whole independent contractor thing and a lot of other stuff. It's always been WWE coming out on top because of some sort of weird bullshit. I mean, it's so good to see on this one that the little guys won, and they were right in the end. You know, justice prevailed.
Logic has prevailed.
Yeah, so great. And yeah, it's crazy. And again, is this like a weird coincidence, or is this part of the reason behind those really strange extensions that were happening before the court case? Because apparently it was meant to go to court weeks before it did, but there was some weird stuff that dragged it out, that it ends up happening during fight week for Punk, when he's needing to prepare for his fight that's going to happen this Saturday. And he's having to go through like one of the most high pressure, just mentally fucked times of his life during training. Like, that sucks. I mean, I really hope that things go well for him. He said he was having to train twice each day in addition to the court time that he was in. Last week.
Going there before and afterwards. That's just ridiculous.
Yeah, I could not even imagine that. But anyway, great stuff.
Well, best of luck to him in the fight, for real. Will always be a CM Punk fan. I don't care that he left the WWE to, live his own life. A lot of people quit jobs and go do their own thing.
Yeah, how dare someone pursue their dreams,
Oh, ridiculous, huh? He owes us so much. Now get the fuck out of here. Jesus Christ.
Nah, I'm just real happy for the dude. He seems happy. He seems positive going into the fight, regardless of whatever way it goes. He's doing his own thing, and it's just great to see. There's a really great interview that he just did with Ariel Helwani that just dropped. Highly recommend everybody check it out to see where he's at. Just a real open, honest chat. Him and Ariel have a little bit of history, and really, really nice little moment on how he's feeling one day out of that trial with the fight coming up in the next couple of days.
Yeah, I'll definitely check that out. Well, speaking of open and honest, one other thing we wanted to talk about was someone who was very open and honest recently with their documentary, Mauro Ranallo, with the bipolar rock and roller. I sat down with my lady friend and had her watch this. She had no idea what we were getting into, and she was really moved. And I actually was. I'm kind of a sap, so it's not hard for me to admit I was driven to tears at a point during this thing.
Yeah, same actually.
What a moving thing.
It was great. It was I was really looking forward to this from like the first time I saw the trailer and just how moving that seemed, and then hearing some of the other stuff of Mauro talking about what was going to be covered. Again, he actually had another really good interview with Ariel Helwani on the MMA Hour that I highly recommend checking out. Just some really raw, honest moments about their backstory. Apparently, with his bipolar time, some of those bad times, he actually blocked Ariel on Twitter. And they actually sort of got into that a little bit, and how sometimes like just the world doesn't make sense when you're in that crazy everything's bad mode. I mean, I can relate to that myself. I've gone through different depression and those kind of issues in the past. So I can definitely understand that headspace. And just with this whole documentary and everything, it's just great to see more people talking about it, and for us to be talking about it, for example. Like, this is stuff that people need to talk about more on a daily basis, and remove the stigma, really, than what it has.
I personally do deal with depression and sometimes manic behavior. People can maybe see on Twitter how manic I can be at sometimes, as far as being up a lot of times. But when I get really depressed, man, it gets dark, and it's a lot of people don't understand it. They kind of buck up, man. Just, you can get around this stuff. You're always normally happy, but that's not always the case. And sometimes you see it coming a mile away, and there's nothing you could do to avoid it, and as much as you try. And I think Mauro, being such a high profile guy, sharing his story just shows how someone who, from our point of view, looking out without knowing all this stuff, we would assume that Mauro Ranallo is incredibly upbeat, positive. He has everything going for him, but none of those things really matter when it's your actual brain that's working against you. And what really impressed me was clearly how long ago they began the process of recording the documentary and how much change went through that entire process. The teaser trailer, if you haven't watched the whole thing, the teaser trailer is just the smallest glimpse to how much is in this documentary and all his friends. And
it's like so confronting, really. Like,
yes,
and a lot of that
like,
stuff.
Here it is.
How brave has it got to be to put yourself out there when you're like a public figure like Mauro? Like, it doesn't get much more public a figure than a broadcaster for both WWE and like some of Showtime's highest profile boxing and MMA stuff. Like, he called Floyd Mayweather versus Manny Pacquiao and Floyd against Conor. Like, and he's putting himself out there to this amount, and like you can see right in there in the trailer, like there's stuff to where most people wouldn't want their closest friends to see some of this footage, let alone the world. Like,
imagine him sitting back and like watching the dailies of, like, especially that one of the bigger parts or something they show a while is when Mauro's in his room, no shirt on. It's probably a hotel room or something, and just dealing with like looking for stuff and just mannequing out. It's so intense. And just imagine him watching that later on and like saying, still agreeing, like, yeah, we have to put this out here. It's very important. And then coming to grips with that, like, personally, like, I wouldn't want to do that. I that's incredibly brave, man.
Yeah, oh, for real. And like his whole reason for wanting to do this, and the dude that actually did the documentary spoke about this on the show with Ariel. He had times where he was saying, all right, dude, I'm your friend. Do you really want to put this out there? And then if anything, Mauro was championing going more out there on like the, way over the top stuff that it would, really potentially paint him in a not so great light to some people, where, some people might watch and say, oh, that guy's just an asshole, if they completely miss the point, But yeah, it was just so interesting to see, just going so out there, all for the sake of encouraging more people to talk about this stuff and encouraging a dialogue, and like we're saying, removing that stigma. He spoke a lot as well about his experience in a lot of the medical environments, hospitals and stuff like that during his real low moments, and how a lot of that treatment maybe wasn't the best. But there are a lot of places out there these days that are so much better. There was one that he was talking about on Ariel's show called Clubhouse, which is or Fountain House. I think Clubhouse is a thing within it, but just a real open environment where people can talk about this stuff, get treatment, but not feel like they're in an insane asylum kind of deal. And I think the more that we can have that kind of stuff, the better it's going to be for everybody. Mental health is a serious deal, but it shouldn't be talked about like people are crazy.
And not all treatment methods are the same for everyone. Like Mauro was speaking of, like, first initially, like a lot of pills and medication was fed down his throat that kind of even screwed him up further. And I had experience with that when I first started trying to get treatments for my anxiety and my depression. They put me on different kinds of medication like Wellbutrin that, like, honestly, it just kind of almost made me suicidal at times and didn't help out at all. And I did self-medicate at times. Of course, I do smoke marijuana. That's pretty obvious. And I think that helps me out quite a bit, help dealing with the anxiety. And as Mauro said, people say, but doesn't marijuana make you more anxious or paranoid and stuff? Like, no, not if you're using it in a way to actually treat something that's going on personally. Like, yourself and your body, and as Mauro has shown, this treatment works for some. It's not something like the marijuana itself. Yeah, let's not stigmatize that either. It can be a valid source of medical treatment for a myriad of illnesses, and especially mental illnesses like depression or bipolar.
For real. I mean, not to say like that some actual pharma medical things are good for people, but the whole point is that like people are different, and what's good for one person isn't necessarily good for another. So again, these different alternative treatments shouldn't be stigmatized. Whether it's a bit of pot, which again I find a great treatment for my own from time to time, to a lot of your natural type of treatment options. There's a lot of really good natural sort of supplement type of things that'll really potentially take the edge off. I mean, I found that combination for myself really works well. So yeah, I just encourage people to not think of the pharmacy as their only viable option, really.
Yeah, agreed, 100%. And
Cool.
now I have a life goal to hopefully one day partake in a little bowl with Mauro Ranallo at some point. That'd be very cool.
That would be
I've
very
smoked
cool.
with some of my favorite legends. I got to partake with Conan. That was pretty amazing. Got to put Mauro on the list there, friend.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome. Yeah,
For sure.
so great. And one of the other things that I really wanted to mention before we move on to this interview with Jonah, I think he's just about ready to go, was in the interview with Ariel. Mauro mentioned how much of a big thing and how sad it was for him when Larry Sweeney passed away because of these exact issues that we're talking about, because of bipolar. And he took his own life during one of those moments. And I mean, talk about independent wrestling. Like, Larry Sweeney should have been our era's Bobby the Brain Heenan. Dude had so much talent, and I like, honestly, one of the best wrestling personalities I've ever seen. And yeah, like, it's such a sad ending. I mean, you can go forever in wrestling. Chris Kanyon is another great example of that. Where this shouldn't happen. And I guess sometimes we feel like we don't have anyone to talk to, or it's just that's the only out. But honestly, like, if you can take anything away from this documentary, it's that, and Mauro says it himself, this bipolar can be a life sentence, but it doesn't necessarily need to be a death sentence.
Very true. And I think one of the biggest things is a lot of us guys, unfortunately, are just unwilling to just admit maybe when we're going through a little bit of troubled time, and we deal with that all internally and in our own head. And honestly, the people that love you aren't going to judge you. They want to hear, especially if it means losing you between you and talking to you. There's no one that's going to want to make that choice. They're going to always have you open up and express anything that's going on inside you, and so feel free to do so. I've been open and honest on Twitter, and honestly, before it was hard to like tell people that as a guy, man, dude, I am fucking depressed. Like, I want to cry, I want to fucking scream, and I have no idea why. It's hard to talk to it. If you're open and honest with the people you care about, it's a release. It can be cathartic. It's not necessarily a solution, but it's better than bottling all that shit up. You know what I mean, Chris? For
real. I've never felt bad about opening yourself up and talking to people about this. It's always a positive thing. And if it ever was going to be a negative thing, you don't want that person in your life anyway. So come on.
Fuck yes.
Yeah, exactly. All right. No, that was really good. It felt good to talk about, man. I'm glad we're able to connect over like such an important thing.
Yeah, I'm giving you a long hug, intercontinental, from the other side of the globe, Fred.
Oh, thanks, brother.
Yeah, bro.
Much appreciated. Yeah, everybody make sure to check this documentary out, whether you yourself have these kind of issues or not. It'll be a great way to get an insight into maybe that friend or that coworker or whatever that sometimes can be a bit moody, and you can be like, well, okay, I can start to understand it.
And for at the very least, watch this documentary for early Mauro Ranallo as a manager for wrestlers. Holy shit.
Oh, man.
The guy was incredible.
Jim Cornette Jr., hey? Shit.
Oh, man. I had no idea he had that inside him. Matt Farmer knows him, so Farmer told me about it back in the day, but yeah, I had no idea.
Yeah, man. So good. So good. I almost want to see him as a manager today now. Shit. So talented.
That'd be awesome.
All right, man. Well, I think we are ready to go for our big interview. Let me see if I can get our special guest, Jonah Rock, on the line. Let's see if this magical thing is going to work with the Skype.
Don't botch it, dude.
Yeah, right. So much pressure. I may end up editing this out, or I may not. We'll see how we go.
Might be delightful to leave it in there.
Yeah, we'll see what's up. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I am tremendously excited to bring you the first official guest of Grown Men Watch This Shit. He is a dude that is just blowing up everywhere right now, a fellow Australian who I am extremely proud of. He's doing awesome things in PWG, in Europe, WXW, Progress. He is killing it. Proud member of Team MDK, proud Australian wrestler. He is the king of monsters. He is Jonah Rock. Welcome to the show, Jonah. What's going on?
Thank you for having me. I'm always happy to speak to people about wrestling. Obviously, it's my life. It's a huge passion of mine. And when we met Chris, I think it was 2009, maybe.
Dude, that's insane. I was trying to think of it myself, and I was like, that sounds too long ago. But was that like...
Yeah, I think 2009, PWA Queensland, it would have been.
Yeah.
Obviously, I gravitate towards those people that have sort of a different view and look on wrestling, and you obviously have that, Chris. So I'm happy to have a talk with you and Jeremy.
Thanks, man.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Well, you said you're passionate about wrestling. You love talking about wrestling. Before we got on the air, you actually said you're going to be popping over to do a little bit of training later, so you're imparting your wisdom as well. How long have you been actually helping training other guys?
It's been about 3 years now that I've been coaching people in Adelaide of South Australia. It's something I like to do as well. Usually when I travel domestically within Australia, I'll take seminars in other states. Recently when I was in the UK, I did a few seminars as well. The way I was trained in wrestling by a guy called Hartley Jackson, who's not as well known worldwide, but definitely in Australia. He was trained by Antonio Inoki. So he had a hard way of coming up in the business, and I like to try and impart those things that I've learned from him, my time in Japan with Pro Wrestling Noah, and other things that I've picked up along the way, and try and help people out.
So I like to think that from the Inoki training, when you meet people, you just like slap them really hard in the face. Is that right?
Well, it is a sign of respect, so.
No, that's awesome. Yeah. Jag Hartley Jackson, such a huge influence in Australian wrestling. He's actually is he still doing the awesome stuff in 01 over there? Is he staying over there at the moment?
He is. Yeah, he is. So he's full-time contracted to 01 at the moment. He's been there for the past couple of years, and during those 2 years, he's also done some guest coaching at the Performance Center with WWE.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah, so he's still imparting his knowledge onto people worldwide, which is great. But yeah, 01 is where he is full-time at the moment.
Yeah, cool. So yeah, obviously you take the Wrestle Rampage. Are you like one of the head trainers there now in Jag's absence?
I am, yeah. So I'm the head coach now. So it's myself and someone you'd be familiar with, AJ Istria.
I am.
Fellow head coach, and then we have some assistant coaches as well.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I've always heard amazing things about the Wrestle Rampage school. I mean, when it comes to Australian wrestling, like there's a few spots that have really great training systems and just put out a great product. I mean, Wrestle Rampage probably got to be the top one down in Adelaide. Obviously, the Melbourne City Wrestling's doing really well here, that they're opening up a school themselves as well.
Yeah.
And then Robbie Eagles doing really great with PWA in Sydney right now. I'm really looking forward to that big show that they're putting on at Max Watts coming up.
Yeah, I'll be there. I'll be beating the life out of Robbie Eagles, so it should be fun.
Good.
I'm glad to see he's doing successful as well. Obviously, he's come over and done some of the PWG's shows that I've been on, so it's good to see fellow wrestlers doing well.
Yeah,
from Australia.
So
so good.
So for the people like who listen to the show that maybe aren't too familiar with your guys' actually Australian scene, is it pretty fruitful? Like, is it you guys got a lot of shows going on every weekend, or is it something where it's like bigger shows hit and miss, or how's it going down there?
Well, at the moment, I think we're starting to be in a transitional period. So I feel like Australia's always been a little bit behind the rest of the independent wrestling world, where you've had some states, because everything's so far away as well. For me to get to the nearest state, for me to go to Melbourne to drive would take 10 hours. So I have to be flown everywhere. Again, that creates different people can afford different things.
Sure.
So it makes it hard for Australian wrestlers to get around the whole scene, unless you become notable and then you're able to do that. But I think it was a bit of a smaller scene for a while. People forget that in the 60s and the 70s, Australian wrestling was huge.
Dude.
So it was
enormous. It
every
was
Sunday.
like the most successful territory in the world. Like it was the big money place for like all these
Was it
guys.
Barnett running down there?
Yeah, Jim Barnett.
That's right.
Yeah.
You had Andre the Giant, Abdullah the Butcher, all these guys coming
Killer
over here to
Carl
make money.
Cox.
Yep. But since then, as soon as Australian wrestling lost TV, I think that's when it sort of went down. There was a bit of a spark during the Attitude Era. I know when Hartley Jackson, that we mentioned, was wrestling around that time, 99, 2000, 2001. The shows were drawing around 2,000 people. So it was actually doing pretty well. But now I think with the current state of independent wrestling and video on demand content, I think Australian wrestling is starting to get that push. And obviously with a lot more Australian wrestlers going overseas and getting noticed, I think hopefully we'll one day be able to be similar to a scene that UK has at the moment.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like even what you just said, in a lot of ways it mirrors the UK scene, where it was such a huge thing in the TV days. And we were just talking about this on the last show about how much that World of Sport product just like carried everything, and there was so many places to work and so many shows and all that. And then when they lost the TV show, it just entered a really dark period, and then that scene only really came back. I mean, it was kind of similar to what you're saying. Early 2000s, there was that bit of a hot time with your guys like Jody Fleisch and Johnny Storm and that kind of thing. But then it's only really been the last couple of years since Progress and ICW over there and Rev Pro, and it's just like blown up like crazy, which for all accounts, like I really hope the same thing happens over here.
Yeah, I'm hoping so. If you look at the obviously international fans that might be listening to this, if you go and watch some Melbourne City Wrestling or Wrestle Rampage or PWA, EPW as well, which is from Perth, they do have on-demand content on Vimeo. If you watch it, the quality of the shows are just as good, in my opinion, to what is in the UK scene or in the USA in the top indies at the moment. It's just that people haven't quite noticed it yet.
Yeah, and I think people are starting to, like that MCW show that had Okada on it. A lot of people, like more people than I'd ever heard of watching Australian content, watched that because they put it up on New Japan World. And I think they have stuff up on the High Spots network as well. Same, I know that PWA in Sydney has a couple of shows up there too. So yeah, it's very accessible. Definitely just check some stuff out, and I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. And I mean, how better an example of the taste of the product can people get than PWG, and getting to watch dudes like yourself and Robbie and Brooksy. Like, you guys are just killing it. I'm so proud to see it.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's been pretty crazy. Like, someone like myself, I've been watching wrestling my whole life, and I started watching independent wrestling when I was 13 years old. So just as I was becoming like a teenager, so my teenage years were influenced by Ring of Honor and PWG, and one of the guys I used to watch all the time was Super Dragon.
Oh yeah.
And then he'll
now you're
know,
working
like,
for him.
yeah, 15 years later, I'll be working for him and yeah, wrestling regularly for him. So it's crazy.
So
Yeah, I was
nuts.
lucky there to be there for your debut at PWG, and the crowd definitely took to you. You're on an incredible record there, already in a title match. So, how do you feel about how the PWG crowd has taken to you, and are you loving the States, man?
I've been fortunate. I think like it was one of those things like I try to wherever I go, like same with PWG, the UK, Japan. I just as soon as I get that platform, I just try to impress as much as possible. Bowler was interesting considering the heat. I did feel the heat a lot.
Dude.
Yes.
I was the same. I mean, obviously I didn't wrestle over there, but just
Yeah,
that
we were
weekend
dying.
was
We're
so
just sitting there
fucked.
watching. So
Yeah.
It did make it difficult for a 300-pound plus person to wrestle, but I got through that one, and yeah, I've been lucky to keep coming back and having great opponents as well. I've been able to wrestle Keith Lee, Jeff Cobb, Timothy Thatcher just recently, and the crowd originally got behind me, and I feel now they've sort of turned on me, and I'm a bit of a different Jonah Rock now in the recent PWG. Once you see the most recent DVD come out, Blu-ray,
okay. All-Star Weekend.
you'll see. Yeah, or the end of All-Star Weekend, I sort of that main event title match is where you'll see me sort of turn into the Jonah Rock maybe more fans in Australia are familiar with. I've always been a big
I was watching your hype video that you say you focus on like murdering and torturing and killing. So, understood.
Yeah, so it was good, and I mean, I had to face Keith Lee and Walter in that match, and there's like over 1,000 pounds in the ring at one time.
Yeah,
but those two guys getting the big look from the WWE, that doesn't hurt to be in the ring with those guys by any means.
Oh, of course, yeah. And Walter, especially at the moment, I think he's at the moment, he might be the hottest thing in independent wrestling. He's an incredible wrestler, but yeah, he's very popular at the moment.
And it's like awesome to see a dude like Walter from different people that I've spoken to. A dude that's just like really confident in his abilities too. Like he knows how good he is, and he doesn't necessarily need to be going for a lot of these tryouts and things like that, but they come to him. It's just awesome to see that kind of thing where the power is in the hands of the people that it deserves to be.
Yeah, and I think a big thing, Walter's sort of, I guess, similar to some of the Australians as well, is that he's been wrestling and doing his craft for the past 10 years in Germany, and people just haven't been able to see it, similar to myself. And then when people get that little bit of exposure and people can see it, it's just, it's taken off for him.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I remember like seeing Walter do awesome shit back when he was Big Van Walter, in those early WXW tournaments back when almost like, was he still on those shows like back when Hero and Punk were doing stuff over there?
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he was around then. He was a bit more chubbier, but
yeah. But I mean, you could always tell he was good, and then he's just like gotten better and better. And I don't know if those chops have gotten harder and harder, but they're pretty bloody scary to see these days.
And I think they've gotten harder. I when I was in WXW, I did a press conference thing, and they spoke to me about because I recently wrestled Suzuki, and they spoke to me about like that hard sort of style of wrestling. And I said, like on record, Walter has the hardest chops I've ever taken. I'm like, much harder than Suzuki's, much harder than Kensuke. I'm like, he has the hardest chops I've ever taken.
Yeah. How can I ask? Did you? I don't think you ever got to work Kobashi and Noah, did you?
No. So he was on his way out when I first got there in 2013. I got to spend time with him in the dojo, which was incredible.
Yeah.
Kobashi is my all-time favorite wrestler. So he was the first person I met when I got to Japan. So for the first time in my life, starstruck.
I can definitely understand that. I mean, it's bloody Kobashi. So nuts.
Yeah, but I was there for his retirement show, so
cool.
I got to be and watch that live, and I
And
was at
like getting to
ringside.
experience like a sold out Budokan Hall, like that's a pretty rare thing these days. I mean, I think that was
Yeah.
actually the last time that it's officially happened, right?
I think so. Yeah, I'd say that would be the last one, the final Burning show.
Yeah.
Would have been the last one.
You spent a good amount of time in Japan. How do you like spending time over there? Did the culture shock pretty strong for you, or how'd you take to it?
I actually really enjoyed it. I went previously before actually working in Japan. I went there for a holiday with
Okay.
some friends and my wife, and we were there for like 2 weeks. So it's always somewhere I wanted to go to experience, and it was somewhere that I always wanted to wrestle as well.
Such an amazing
And then
place.
incredible. And then when I was able to work for Pro Wrestling Noah, and I was contracted for them over a few years. I loved it. The only downfall was it was like big stays there. So they wanted me to stay there for 3 months, or they wanted me to stay there for 4 months, and it's sort of hard, with your life back home in Australia, going back and forth. So I know bigger companies like New Japan at the moment, which is just, they have the stronghold on Japanese wrestling, maybe even apart from WWE, just wrestling in general. They're able to afford to send their guys back and forth from home, so they get to spend a little bit more time at home.
I mean, I guess like pluses and minuses. Like whenever you're over there, I mean, you kind of want to spend a longer amount of time, but I guess when you're talking about 3 months, it's like that's kind of the wall to where it's like a little bit even longer than that.
Yeah, you become you forget about the outside world a bit, like so. I guess wrestling, that is your job. But then sometimes when there's a little bit of downtime for a week or so, and you're just stuck in the dorm or in the dojo, it gets to your head a little bit.
Yeah, I've talked to people about that actually. You know, Dingo Cannon.
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Yeah. He obviously has been over there a long time.
Uh,
And yeah, he definitely echoed those sentiments of just like how, as well, like that as close as you can feel to the Japanese talent. I mean, I don't know if this is a current thing, but like there always being a bit of separation between the gaijin and Japanese talent, no matter how long you've been there for.
I maybe I think that might be a bit more of an old school thing. I think there's always going to be a divide, just because that's just how it is. And when you get put into stables and things like that, so for example, I'm in Team DK, and I was with Shane and Mike, so we would have our locker room, and then Brave, like another stable, would have their locker room, and then
Oh
Kenta would
wow.
have locker room. So yeah, you get put into
That's awesome.
yeah, you almost get put into your your cliques anyway, and then certain groups ride on certain buses with each other, so you're sort of forced to create a friendship with certain people over others, just by the habit of how it is. So
Yeah, that's super interesting. I never knew that about like the actual faction locker rooms. It's like kayfabe all the way.
all the way. Just like at the time, Kenta had No Mercy. No Mercy and Brave never be on the same bus. They're on separate buses.
Yeah, I'll always remember.
Bill Watts would be proud. Bill Watts would be very proud.
Yeah, like the old Memphis motherfuckers of having the heel and babyface locker room and meeting for the first time in the ring.
Fuck yeah, man.
They always did that, and they'd have even like your blue and red corner when you get into the ring. The heel factions would be in the blue corner, faces in the red. So they kept everything sort of separate. I mean, it makes it easier, you know what to do a little bit more. But the weird thing about Japanese wrestling is, even though they do have heel factions or face factions, no one's really a heel. I don't feel anymore. Like everyone,
Yeah, you definitely get that vibe.
There's not many heels these days, period. Like, no real dastardly son of a bitches. Like, the only guy who kind of comes off that way is Sami Callihan at this time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's true. And I think what he does at the moment is great. Like, I really like stuff at the moment. I think it's one of those things, like bad guys are just cool. And, ever since NWO, Stone Cold and stuff, like, yeah, bad guys are the cool guys. So it's hard to be a heel and not be cool, I guess.
Yeah.
For sure, for sure.
I mean, I guess you walk that line pretty well. I mean, from like the Australian stuff that I've seen you do in MCW to like the more of the stuff of recent that you're talking about in PWG, to where you actually like people want to cheer you because like you're fucking awesome, but
Yeah,
like you being able to turn that on its head, and actually getting that legitimate heat, like it's got to be like a non-stop challenge.
Yeah, I think you have to know your crowd as well. MCW was a big one. I was obviously the big heel, and then they just kept cheering me, and it makes it real hard to try and put over someone else as a big baby face. So usually, I think companies should listen to the crowd as well. I know in Adelaide the same thing happened, so they just turned me, and I became the big. Still the same. I'm still the same wrestler. I'm just beating up the bad guys now. So, but I think you have to know your crowd, and I know PWG, and I know I get more heat if I, lock on a chin lock in the middle of my match and not do some certain moves. And people are like, oh, this guy, they might call me boring. They might do stuff like that, but I know that's going to create genuine heat.
Yeah, and like when you have that confidence in yourself to where you don't necessarily need to try to be placating the fans with that style, you can like do your own thing and get the reactions you actually want to.
Yeah, exactly. I always try to be something different on the show, and I love PWG and some of the guys you watch, especially most recently. Speaking of Robbie Eagles, him and Bandito.
Oh, dude, I heard about that.
Yeah, they had an incredible match, and to make myself different on the show, me and Thatcher just we brawled and beat each other up.
Yeah,
you're not going to see us do the things that they do, but it's something different.
Well, I mean that's like the magic of PWG, isn't it? Like for the longest time, a lot of people kind of have these misconceptions about PWG, about it just being like the spot monkey place or whatever. But I mean, it's always been about the contrast, and we talked about this on one of our other shows as well, about how you do have that crazy like Young Bucks style match, and then you'll have a match with a dude like Timothy Thatcher, or yourself, or Walter, or Zack Sabre Jr., where you're just like telling a awesome fucking story that looks like legit as all fuck.
Yeah, I think contrast is the biggest thing for them. Even if you go back to like early PWG, you still had guys like Samoa Joe and stuff.
Like Danielson.
Danielson, yeah. So it's always been a good contrast of wrestling, and I love wrestling there. It's great.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of PWG, do you have any Legion Larry interaction stories, or have you been smart enough to steer clear of him?
I think everyone has an interactive story with Legion Larry. He's usually just grumpy most times I see him, so I try to just respect what the man says to do.
Understood.
Last time I was there, I had some T-shirts delivered. So they came from New York, and they usually go to Excalibur's house. He brings them to the venue, but they got delivered to the hall.
Legion.
Oh.
And I was like,
I ain't signed for this shit.
Yeah, he didn't. So FedEx got there, and he didn't open the door. He was there. He just didn't answer.
That's Larry.
Yeah. And then so FedEx contacted the guy that did my shirts, and then we're trying to figure out if I could go to the depot to pick up my shirts. But then they ended up doing a second round near the area, so they dropped them off in the afternoon, and he accepted them. And then just when I got to the venue, he wasn't happy. He's like, you're not allowed to have T-shirts at the venue. He's like, how long have you known Super Dragon? And he knows you're not supposed to have this done here, and he wasn't very happy about it.
Oh,
but I got
man.
Awesome.
That is the best.
So let me ask you, how did you first get into the States? Did you start sending tapes over? Or did somebody say, man, this JONAH ROCK guy has got to get over here, and they put in a good word for you? How'd that go about?
I don't think it's any. I think it's out there. I think people know that me and Zack Sabre Jr. are very good friends. So we trained together in the Noah Dojo.
Yeah.
Lived with each other on bunk beds. He was the top bunk, I was the bottom bunk.
That's adorable.
Yeah, you get to know someone really, really well when you live like that. So he was doing great things in PWG, and each year when Bowler comes around, they always look for new talent. They look for something different, and he was the one that actually put me forward and said you should get Jonah. He also put Walter forward as well because he's good friends with Walter. So, and that's how Super Dragon contacted us.
Man, that's so cool. I mean, getting a referral basically from a dude that I'm pretty sure most people would count him among like the 5 best wrestlers in the world, and he's like putting you over, like that's awesome. And
It's
like it's legit as well because like he knows like the guys that would work well in front of that audience and those dudes that wouldn't, and he was right.
So Bowler was your first foray into the States?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Holy shit, that's incredible.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. People don't realize. People are like, oh, so you've been here for other smaller independent promotions and stuff like that. I was like, nope, Bowl was the first one. So
wow,
it's a good welcome to USA Wrestling, I think.
Yeah, I mean that was
sure.
a big part of the reason that because I actually got to go over to that Bowler as well, and that was the first time I'd actually got to see PWG live, and I've always been wanting to.
So Jonah might be the reason why this show exists.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, yeah, because Jonah, Jeremy, and I that's where we initially met. That Bowler.
Thanks, Jonah.
No worries.
What an appropriate first guest to have, the guy that brought it all together inadvertently.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. That's right. I was very lucky. Like it's a weird thing with Zach, because we were at the dojo from 2013 until 2015. I always knew Zach was an incredible wrestler, incredible person, but then to come these years later and he's one of the best in the world, it's a weird thing to see that, but he's doing great.
Yeah,
and
for real.
He's constantly opening doors for other people. I think he's a big reason why the UK scene is so popular at the moment. When he first did Bowler, that so many people got to see that style of wrestling again that they haven't seen in a long time, and I think it put eyes onto the UK scene for sure.
Yeah. And
he's one of those guys that took the slow down pace and using it as a heel tremendously in PWG because everyone loved him, but they just slowly turned on him. He just was smart enough to turn that on them. You know what I mean? It's really brilliant. Zach's a tremendous talent. One of the greatest matches I ever saw in PWG was him versus Pentagon for Bola. And wow, if you personally haven't seen that match, Jonah, you definitely need to check it out. It's one of the best matches I've ever seen. Period.
Yeah, I have seen it. It was great.
Yeah.
It was great.
Yes, sir.
I think Zach's very smart with wrestling. He knows what to do again in what certain places, how it works. And then he also knows when to sort of leave and go to another scene as well and help out another scene. And then he's doing right now, I know he's still doing his New Japan stuff, but he's back in the UK scene a bit where he hadn't been in the past few years because he was busy with the States and Japan. So it's good to see.
Yeah, man. I was raving on the last show. I was like checking out a bit of RevPro. Just how awesome Zach's been as the champion for RevPro for like that last it's almost like a 5-6 month run with it towards the end of last year up till he dropped it in New Orleans, and like everything it was almost like the closest thing I've seen to like Danielson's run with the ROH title, where it's just like he brings out a complete different side of all of his opponents and has like a different match like based on their strengths because he's just so flexible in that. Awesome to see.
That's right,
yeah. Yeah, man, it like the whole thing of like you coming so far, like the whole reason I wanted to have on you on the show basically was because of like this crazy exciting time that has got to be in your career. Like you've been doing it for so long, and then just in this past 12 months, just like everything blowing up. Like it's, I mean, between the PWG, that Europe trip, WXW, working that New Japan tour in Australia. Like, it's got to be pretty insane for you that, you know, working so long and then just like everything all at once. I mean, does it feel like that or what?
It does a little bit. Like I have had like a real incredible run in the last year, so I'm very happy and lucky at the same time. But yeah, it's been something I've been working hard for. Like as I said, with the dojo that I run here, like I've been constantly training and trying to learn as much as I can about wrestling for the past 10 years. And I'm glad that it's all starting to sort of pay off. And I'm just, you know, trying to keep that momentum going and trying to keep doing good things in wrestling.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's great to see like when it happens to the good guys. 'Cause it's like you meet a lot of people in wrestling and in Australian wrestling. You know, not to say people are bad or whatever, but it's like there's certain people we just connect with, and they're just like awesome dudes. And then to see the good things happen to the awesome dudes is like so much more fulfilling, kind of thing.
No,
Well, I can imagine for you, for Nick and seeing Nick and Shane, their progression, like that must be for you personally, kind of make you proud. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. I've always, like in life in general, and not just wrestling, I've always tried to be the nicest person I can be, and I think it does help when you are like that in a business like wrestling. When you do start to succeed, people are genuinely happy for you, because I know there are people that aren't the nicest people, and I've met them, and then they start to do good things, and it's hard to be happy for them. But Shane and Nick obviously are just doing great, and they had a little bit of a hiccup in their career in NXT at the moment, but I think they're back on track to do good things now, especially with the way they've reintroduced them as well.
Yeah, because I mean, people might not know, but Shane Haste and Mikey Nichols had an awesome run in Noah
Sorry,
as well.
I used the NXT names.
I know by both names.
Both work. But yeah, I mean, they really started it all for TMDK and Noah, working right up from the dojo stuff as almost like guys and young boys to like winning those heavyweight tag titles and just doing so much good stuff there. I mean, definitely worth going back and checking out some of those matches.
I just realized that TMD MDK, the Torture Murder Destroy Kill. Oh, man, I'm an idiot. I did not put that together. Just literally just now.
Oh, it's also the Mighty Don't Kneel. So I mean, I guess it's
I know
multiples.
that's the one I knew, but I just literally just put it together. Fucking
Yeah. That's exactly why I said it. Just to use those little, those letters, make it something else. But yeah, Shane and Mike have been doing great things in wrestling for a long time, and they did the hard yards. They were in the States as well for quite a while. I think Mike lived there maybe for almost 2 years before before him and Shane got the Noah gig to go and be young boys. But then, yeah, they worked all the way up from young boy to becoming the tag team champions together. And they had some great matches against Segura and Tanaka that I think are like still some of the best tag matches I've ever seen.
Oh yeah, Dengar and Yankees.
Yeah, if you can find those matches online anywhere, which is hard to find, I know, or however you source it, I would say to watch them. They also won Tokyo Sports Tag Team of the Year in 2015, I believe. And they were the first Gaijin tag team to do that since Stan Hansen and Vader in 1990. So
what an awesome stat. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I'm proud to say I do have that match on a hard drive somewhere, by the way. Yeah, love me some Dengar and Yankees.
Let's get some backstory on your guys' relationship. When you met Chris, was he wrestling at the time?
Yes, he was. So I believe the first time I met you was it was a weekend of wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember who I wrestled the first night, but the second night was me and my old tag team partner, Elliot Sexton, at Sex Rock, against you and your quotation brother.
Josh, my brother Josh, the famed bright young baby faces, the Hayes brothers.
Oh, so you had a gimmick brother. I didn't know that. That's awesome.
Yeah. That's funny. Yeah, that was like like way back in 2009, something like that. At like the Bray Park PCYC or something.
Right. PCYC. Yeah, I remember it.
Hilarious.
I remember it well. I think there was a bunch of us from Adelaide there at that show. I think there was about 5 of us were brought over for that weekend of wrestling. So I believe that was the first time I met you, Chris. And
Dude, you have a good memory. That's impressive. I mean, from myself, not wrestling anymore from the amount of concussions and shit, I guess. I'm happy to see that you have a better memory than I do.
I tried to especially with wrestling, I have weird, I can remember things that happened in wrestling, or even in WWE or old Japanese wrestling, and then I can't remember things in everyday life.
Yes.
So
Oh my gosh, this is hilarious because this is a constant point of struggle in Courtney and I's relationship. In that I shall often say, how do you remember these stats about Luthez and Don Leo Jonathan, but you can't remember my middle name?
it is.
Yeah, I can remember a middle name. That's a bad reference, but there are a lot of things that I'll forget on a day-to-day basis. But it's you're right, it's weird sometimes. Wrestling, it's a different area of your brain or something. I don't know.
Those things have always stuck in my mind. I've told people before as well. My earliest memory of life is watching wrestling, which to some people is really sad. But to me, that someone that loves pro wrestling, it's a cool thing. The earliest memory of my life is watching Hulk Hogan and King Kong Bundy at WrestleMania 2 in a cage.
Oh, wow.
Hell yeah, dude. I was there as a kid.
Wow.
there you go.
Shit.
No way, yeah. That's the very first event I ever went to. I got dragged there, so that's how I fell in love with wrestling.
Huh.
Holy crap. I was
insane.
because of the big football players. I had Too Tall Jones in the fridge, man. Those guys were way over with me as a little kid.
Yeah, I think it's just because something like that, WrestleMania 2, or maybe it was the cage, or someone as big as King Kong Bundy and Hulk Hogan, because they're such big personalities. It's hard not to have that etched in your memory,
Yeah, mine's a little bit similar, and it's similar because it's the big guys. My first memory of wrestling, it was because we didn't have WWF on TV in Australia till 98, but there was some weird thing where they had some daytime wrestling on for a brief time in the mid-90s or something. Maybe in that sports hour, or I don't know what it was, but I have this distinct memory of seeing Hacksaw Jim Duggan wrestle Yokozuna, and Hacksaw Jim Duggan hit him with his 2x4, and I was just my mind was blown, just because there's a sumo wrestling this American dude with a flag, and he hit him with a piece of wood, and I'm like, what is this magical world? And then I didn't get to reconnect with it until maybe 98. When got into it with WCW and when WWF got on TV and all that kind of deal. But weird.
Those things stick out in people's minds. So many times when I speak to people about wrestling and what was the earliest thing you remember or watch, it's always something like that. Something I remember Kane coming out and fire blasting, or it's those big things that people remember. It's crazy.
Yeah.
As a kid, I remember just Yokozuna, of course, this big Japanese man, and at the time not realizing he was yelling Samoa directly at the camera. Yeah. Samoa! Is that must be, what is that a Japanese word for?
I love that as well. It's wrestling. Samoan will pass fine for a Japanese guy. I don't know. Did they ever explain that or what?
They never did. They never said, they never straight up said Yokozuna is Samoan. I don't think. I think it was always saying he was Japanese.
Yeah, but they never went on to say that. And that was, even for me, it was more confusing. I'm half Samoan myself, so being a kid watching Yokozuna, I was like, oh, he looks sort of like me. Maybe I'm Japanese.
Yeah. Maybe you'll take up sumo.
The Rock cousin angle. Are you by chance the cousin of The Rock? Jonah Rock? They seem to hire a lot of his cousins. So I want to try to work that angle.
I wish
Yeah.
I was out of that family.
So good. Yeah, like, so on that first trip over to PWG, another real funny thing, we actually like bumped into one another at the airport in Brisbane. So where I
Yes,
was
we did.
flying out of, I'm like, what the hell are you doing at this airport? I guess it was a convenient flight or whatever. Um, so weird, there's coincidences. But then I was really stoked when I heard that you and Walter got to train with Josh Barnett with
That's
the, the,
right.
the
Yeah.
catch wrestling stuff. Because I'm like super passionate about the catch wrestling stuff and just nerdy about it with like Carl Gotch and Billy Robinson and Yoshiaki Fujiwara, all that kind of shit. So yeah, I was like, that's such a cool thing to do. I mean, can you tell us much about that experience?
Yeah. Again, just sort of luck, I guess. Like that was one of the biggest things I took away from the weekend. Even though I just competed in bowler, which is a huge deal. Uh, Josh Barnett had invited Jeff Cobb to come out and train. And Cobb just so happened to ask me and Walter, knowing that we like that sort of style of training and we both, do that stuff back home. And we were lucky to go and train with Josh Barnett for a few hours. And he's a really cool person, like a really nice guy. He knows a lot about pro wrestling, and obviously he knows even more about catch wrestling and submission wrestling, being trained by Billy Robinson. But he pretty much, for a good few hours, we did a training session with him where we could incorporate those catch things into our pro wrestling. Similar
So
stuff
good.
that he wrestles. Yeah, yeah. I was very lucky. I knew that a.k.a. Strip back home would have been would have loved to have done it. I think for some reason, like Queensland wrestling especially has a little bit of a hub with like the guys that like the catch stuff. Obviously yourself, Istria, Rufio,
Yeah.
some of the guys down there training in that style. And I think it's something as well in the world of wrestling today is going to start to become more prevalent when you see people wrestle, that people will use that shoot style of things in their matches. I know I don't always do it, but I definitely use techniques during my match to get me to where I want to go towards the end of the match by using those things because, I think it's a big part of wrestling that sometimes gets lost.
Mm-hmm.
The shoot style, the an art form you don't see as much. But now with guys like Walter or all of Rinkamp, Zach, Matt Riddle, you have a lot of these shoot style guys doing great things. It's only going to get more popular. And for me at the moment, I think one of the best wrestlers in the world is Hideki Suzuki.
Oh man, I was about to bring up Hideki Suzuki when you mentioned Josh Barnett, because do you remember that amazing match that Josh Barnett and Hideki Suzuki had on one of those Inoki New Year's Eve shows? It was like an MMA show, and then these guys just came out and had like the best shoot style pro wrestling match, and like I think Mauro was even doing the commentary for it, and they were just and they just put it over like they just went from announcing an MMA fight, and then even like the old whoever the guy that was doing the commentary with Mauro or whoever it was, who's just an MMA guy, you could tell he was like so fucking impressed by these pro wrestlers just going out there and doing this. But yeah, Hideki Suzuki, man, more people need to know how good that guy is.
Yeah, I think obviously everyone in the world probably at the moment who's interested in wrestling is a huge fan of New Japan Pro Wrestling. But I'm starting to feel, because it is such a monopoly and a stronghold on that market, people are forgetting about the other companies that are in Japan that still have incredible wrestlers. And someone like Hideki Suzuki, who's doing like great things at the moment. He had the
Big Japan.
BJW. Yeah, like people are forgetting about it, but yeah, incredible. Watch them if you can.
Yeah, definitely. So much good stuff going on there. I mean, from Big Japan to All Japan to like Noah is still putting on like a awesome product. I just watched like a fantastic Keno versus Nakajima match. that just like blew my mind. Like there's so much great stuff just outside of the world of New Japan. But I mean, yeah, getting back to like that kind of shoot style revival in wrestling, it's like a really interesting thing. I mean, I think a lot of people maybe just thought it was like this thing that was in vogue a couple of years ago when Timothy Thatcher and Drew Gulak and that were sort of setting that up. But I think even bigger than that, it's just like that cyclical tendency in wrestling where people, you know, some stuff's in vogue or whatever, but you're always going to get back to that legitimate base of the art form, which is like...
Well, that's how it all started. That's what pro wrestling was. It was catch wrestling, and then
yeah. I mean, you watch back like
people got smarter,
Luther's matches. Yeah.
Wait, but me and Chris, we both went to the Matt Riddle Bloodsport show, which some of the fans gave it hit and miss reviews, but I was a fan of the show. Do you think like that style of show can be something that runs repeatedly, or is it like a few and far between, maybe just Mania weekend?
I think because it is like shoot style wrestling is a niche product at the moment. I don't think it can be run regularly. Maybe a few times a year. I know I competed in WXW's tournament they do each year called Ambition.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up too. Like that's a great example of an annual tournament where that crowd just reacts so well to it, and it's just such a fresh, different style, much shorter kind of matches. I know it didn't go too long, but I was a big fan of your match against Bailey in the opening round of that one. Very fun.
What the hell? You beat the shit out of Bailey, dude? That's the little lady?
Those things are interesting as well. The thing I like about Ambition in particular, like I thought Bloodsport was very entertaining for what it was, but I really like to see the guys. Ambition does well by getting talent that do have backgrounds in different martial arts and then putting them in that shoot style setting. Makes for a better show rather than just having pro wrestlers that haven't done that before and then trying to mimic it. I think it always works better if someone has a background in something and then you guys can just go out there and basically fight.
Yeah, I mean,
for sure. That's probably why the best match on the card was Riddle and Suzuki. So.
Yeah, I mean, people forget like just the amount of training that it takes to do that style, like in an authentic way. Like in the, the glory days of shoot style wrestling with UWFI and Pancrase and like the original UWF and all that kind of stuff, rings. Like those guys trained with like, Carl Gotch and stuff like that for a really long time. I remember hearing the stories about like the gaijins that would go over, like Little Guido and some of those other dudes where they'd actually have to train in Florida like for months before they'd actually come over to do a tour and do that style.
Yeah, I know two of the guys who you're familiar with, obviously AJ Istria and Robbie Hart as well from Adelaide. Actually went to
Yuki
the Battle
Ishikawa?
Art School in Canada. Yeah, and trained with Ishikawa with Tim Thatcher as well for 3 months. So Istria alone, I think, is maybe the only person in Australia that does the shoot style credibility. You have a lot of people that do submission wrestling, but not fantastic. So, yeah, I think if you want to be good at that sort of style, you have to definitely train in it.
Yeah, and we were saying like on one of the other shows, there's a real line where you can see through like the dudes that do that, pro wrestling technical style, but then you can see that like legit version of submission wrestling, and it's such a stark difference.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, just little pieces, and I think that's always good as well. Like in any facet of wrestling, you have nowadays. I like to think most independent wrestlers or most wrestlers in the world at the moment get little bits and pieces from all different types of wrestling. Like I know myself, I'm very much what I learned in Noah. That's sort of the way that I wrestle, so that King's Road style. But I incorporate some catch wrestling thing, and then I still do, a frog splash as a finish, and sometimes I do a moonsault and things like that. But I think, the best way to be is to sort of learn every style and then pick and choose.
Yeah. I mean, that's the magic of wrestling, right? anyone that says there's one way of doing things. It's like a million different ways of doing things, and you learn whatever works best for you and whatever works best for that particular match.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's so good. Yeah, I think like Istria and some of those Queensland guys get they benefit from. Have you heard of Chris Foster?
Yes, yeah, I've met him.
Yeah. Chris Foster is a trainer up here that has a background, like great background in catch wrestling. Picked the dude's brain for like so long. And yeah, Rufio and Istria and a bunch of other dudes got the opportunity to train with him. And yeah, it's any opportunity you get to learn from someone like that is an awesome thing.
Yeah, I always say that obviously coaching wrestlers here in Adelaide, I try to show them a bunch of different things, but I say like the best way to be is when you get an opportunity to learn from someone, you just try and learn. Obviously coming up, I learned from a bunch of different of the great like Australian wrestlers, guys like Hartley Jackson, Mikey Nichols, Shane Hayes, Slater, David Storm. But then when I was able to go to Japan, I got trained by the guys in Japan, and I spent a lot of time with Marufuji and Kenta, and them giving me advice. And then even while I was there, I got to do sessions in the ring with Super Crazy and Lucha. Then obviously living with Zach, we would roll around all the time, and I'd learn different British technique from Zach. So I just say the best way to be is just to be a sponge and try and get as much information in as possible.
So good. Yeah, man, I think that attitude is definitely a big part of getting that kind of success. And the dudes that have had that success going overseas, like you're saying, like your Adam Brooks and your Robbie Eagles, they're all dudes that just want to take as much on board as they can. It's the key to it.
They're taking their step into the States and such. So who are some other guys like, Brooksy and Rob Eagles who maybe are just on the edge down in Australia, or maybe some of the guys you're training
who's next?
That you think, who's next, buddy?
For me personally,
not to put you two on the spot.
For me personally, someone that I would like to see do more in the maybe the independent scene in the US. He did get a shot with WWE. Is Damian Slater. He was in the Cruiserweight Classic. But he was only in that first round in the match in Tajiri, and I don't think enough people were actually able to see how incredible a wrestler he is.
Oh yeah.
So I think he's someone that should be out there definitely.
Yeah, I mean he got to do a bit of stuff in Japan with 0-1, but like he's so talented. He should be on a much higher level of showcase than where he's at. And one of the cool things is, I mean, people might not have forgotten it from the Cruiserweight Classic, but if you see a lot of his work in Australia, like the stuff for MCW and like his heel kind of work, like dude can actually be like a pretty entertaining, colorful character as well.
He may be one of the smoothest wrestlers I've ever wrestled as well. He's just he's everything he does is almost perfection, bump wise. Everything he does wrestling wise, he's got it down to a T. Apart from him, there's two other names. One that obviously trains with me, and that's AJ Istria. I think his style of wrestling, as we're talking about with the shoot wrestling and stuff, he does it so well that I think abroad he could do really well because people, don't know of him. So if he was to go into the UK scene or the US scene and he could do those things, I think it's because it is a niche, just like a Timothy Thatcher or Walter or something like that. He would do well. And the third person that I think is on the cusp, especially after the match last year with Okada, is Slex.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, that's a great selection.
There's somebody that's sitting down saying, "Oh, fuck, you didn't mention me." All right, whatever.
There's probably a few actually that I should mention my other Team DK members, of course, Marcus Pitt and Elliot Sexton as well.
There you go.
Those guys are great team. I can't neglect them, or they'll be angry at me.
All very talented dudes. Yeah, especially like Slex. Slex is a good one because a lot of people at home, very easy. You can just tune it. I imagine that match is still up on New Japan World with him and Okada. I was lucky enough to be there for that match, and that was just so great. And more so than, obviously a card is awesome. But Slex looked so good in there with him.
Yeah, he also recently had a match at MCW with Pete Dunne as well, which was really good.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, more people need to check out MCW. They put on some really good stuff. And getting back to Ash, AJ Istria, that dude is very talented, and like you're saying, one of the best at that shoot style in Australia. And it's almost like I feel bad for him sometimes because the guys that he's working aren't necessarily attuned to that style as well. There's only so much that you can do, when you're playing it one way. So I think he'd be awesome in the UK scene, where a lot of those guys have that sort of basis to what they do.
Yeah, I speaking to him, I said I think he would really flourish, even in WW.
Yeah,
being able to wrestle those sort of guys that have a base and a background and a knowledge of it as well. And one match I've been wanting to see for a long time is AJ Istria versus Zack Sabre Jr. And it hasn't happened. I'm hoping it happens. But I know Zack is coming over for the International Assault Tours, but it's not happening this tour that's coming up. But I'm hoping in the future it happens.
Yeah, definitely. That'd be great. I mean, I really hope he gets another tour of Noah. I saw he got the last one. I checked out a lot of his matches and a lot of him doing the young boy on the outside thing, opening the gate and holding the barricade and all that kind of shtick. But yeah, I think if he can sort of get up to that next level and start to get to work those competitive matches with some of that awesome talent that Noah's got on their roster, I think that'd be great.
Yeah, I think it would be great. Actually, there is another tag team that I would say this is as a tag team that I think could do well.
Honorable mention.
Yeah, honorable mention. Street Gang Hooligans out of Perth. So wrestler called Alex Kingston and Logan Gray. They're a tag team, and they just do some incredible high flying stuff that, when you're exposed to the world of wrestling, to see something new is always incredible. And I've seen them do some things that I've never seen before. So I think that'd be great.
Nice. Actually, I haven't got to see those guys, so I'll be excited to check them out.
Yeah, look them up. Logan Gray, I was in Perth, and someone said to me, "Oh, you should see this thing," and I watched it, and he does a swanton, like he goes out like he's going to do a swanton, and then he goes into a 450. So
I can't even picture that.
Yeah, I've never seen some of the stuff he can do, and Kingston, his counterpart, his tag partner, does things like he's he used to ride a skateboard, so he comes to the ring with a skateboard, and he'll skateboard and like drop kick people off of the skateboard and do things like that. Like, it's just crazy.
Nice, so good. Yeah, that actually brings me on to like a thing. A lot of those guys that you just mentioned, obviously TMDK guys, but TMDK, I mean, between yourself and Mikey and Shane and then going on to dudes like Marcus Pitt and Slater and everybody. I mean, it's been such a great springboard for you guys. Is that sort of an important basis for what TMDK is, like of good guys to come together and be a springboard for one another, or how do you look at it?
Shane and Mike are the ones that started it. It started out as them. It's just a tag team. And then they brought Marcus Pitt on board, and they were like a trio in Perth. And then what Shane and Mike wanted to do was sort of bring guys that were, at the time in 2012-ish when I joined. The guys that were joining were guys that wanted to break out and, become something. So I think what Shane and Mike tried to do was create this brand of wrestlers that are all trying to become as good as possible. So they almost wanted to do like the elite of Australia and try and have this group where all around Australia there's people that are involved in Team DK, and those are the guys that are, pushing to be in the main event or pushing to get overseas. So it was really cool. Like I was happy when I when I joined right after Marcus Pitt, and then it was Sexton, and then Slex joined, and he went over to Noah as well. And then I think they put Hartley Jackson in there because he just deserved it. He's been around for so long, yeah. And then Slater was the last one. So I think it's a good group of people, and a lot of the guys have broken off and done different things now. But I think everyone still, every now and again, will mention, Team DK, I'm part of this, because there's still something that's special between all of us. So.
Yeah, I remember when I first got onto Team DK after just Shane and Mikey, when it started becoming more of a bigger collective of just awesome talent. I always remembered the quality of you guys' promos and video stuff was just like way better than like anyone else going in terms of releasing video content at the time on the scene. Was that thanks to Elliot Sexton? I know he's still got some awesome video stuff going at the moment.
He does, yeah. He's always been a little bit ahead of the curve with that stuff. So yeah, we were releasing videos as Sex Rock and then as Team Decay when no one else really had like those sort of things on YouTube, especially in Australian wrestling. So we were trying to create content and stuff like that, and a lot of that was him, and then even just the branding of things visually with Shane and Mike with like the logo, and then getting out different T-shirts every month and things that other independent wrestlers in Australia weren't doing. I know other people worldwide were definitely doing it, but I think we were sort of the first to start, really branding ourselves as something so that people can support it more. And the more that you see people walking around in Team DK shirts and stuff like that, the bigger it got.
Yeah.
But yeah, Sexton's still doing great stuff with videos now. His Trophy Life series, he just finished season 2, is incredible, and there's lots of like features in this season as well of international guys.
Yeah, so good. Yeah, they're getting up everywhere. I'm seeing them like linked in like the Wrestling Observer Daily Update and shit. Like he's doing well with them.
Yeah, he is.
Awesome, man. Well, yeah, like, I mean, finishing up, like, obviously, there's a lot of Australians. You've sort of been one of the main one, like, doing awesome stuff overseas. My buddy Mark Davis doing awesome stuff in the UK scene. I was really stoked to hear that you guys got to work again. When like the last time I saw you guys wrestle a singles match was up here at like the Tribal Theatre. Was that where the last time you guys worked?
It was, yeah. The last time was the Tribal Theatre, and I had fun in that match. But again, yeah, it's one of those things no one will ever get to see. So it was cool to be able to wrestle each other again. We wrestled each other in a tag match, so I got to do.
Is that for a tag?
Got to wrestle Ozzy. No, so Fight Club Pro Wrestling. Myself and Travis Banks got the team for the first time ever. And we wrestled Aussie Open, and then Attack. I wrestled Davis in a single match, which was really cool. And I got to spend some time with him as well while I was there. I went to Wolverhampton, where he's living, and spent a week and a half or so there with him as well. So it was really good. He's doing really well, and I think he's one to watch as well. Obviously, his tag partner Kyle as well is incredible. But I've always had a soft spot for Mark Davis, always. I think most people do.
Yeah, you either love him or you hate him, and I love him.
I hate him. I'm calling that group.
I don't know how you can't love him. He's this big heavyweight that can do like incredible things. So
yeah,
great.
So good.
Yeah, I saw an awesome match, Rev Pro, him, Aussie Open versus Chosen Bros. That was really a tremendous match.
Yeah, actually, yeah, all 4 of those guys incredible. So I haven't seen that yet. I'll have to watch it.
Yeah, man, that whole show's boss. We kind of gave it a bit of a review on the last episode. Awesome main with Ishii and Keith Lee.
Keith Lee.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so good. Also, man, I just watched your singles match with Keith Lee at All-Star Weekend, last year's one. Dude.
Yeah.
Just, that is what a hoss fight should be. Fucking love that.
Keith is he's a very interesting wrestler. I think he's incredible at what he does, but for how big he is, some of the things that he can do, there's not many other heavyweights that can do it. But I always try to, I think I can do similar things to what he does. So it was a good clash of styles, I think.
Yeah, man. So good.
And working at PWG now, you've like basically almost a chance to work with anybody you really want to over a period of time. Is there anybody still that you are pressing as far as dream match? I know it's a cliche.
I mean, for me, the
but
dangling carrot's got to be the big singles match with you and Walter in PWG, right? We haven't got that singles match yet.
Well, Walter didn't pin me in the title match, and I recently
the three-way.
So I think it's definitely destined to be me and Walter in a big singles match, which would be very reminiscent of All Japan '90s style match. I'm assuming.
Kings Road all the way, baby.
My dream match for PWG, which I'm sure is most guys that compete there, dream match is Super Dragon.
Oh man.
Oh man, I had a feeling that was coming.
Shit. Someone's gonna die in that match.
The thing is, everyone wants to wrestle Super Dragon, but I don't know if he'll ever put the mask back on again, so it's hard to say. But that's my dream match to eventually wrestle Super Dragon.
Oh,
that's what dream matches are all about, man. They don't necessarily have to come true.
Exactly.
So.
Yeah. My dream match outside of PWG, a match that I've always wanted since the start of my career, is Samoa Joe. So I'm hoping one day.
Dude, I could see that happening. So good. I always thought that awesome like Hashimoto Enziguri kick that you do.
Yes.
So much like Joe's one back in the day, and obviously Hashimoto. Fucking every time I see that, I pop. So good. Just the timing of it and everything. It's awesome.
I'm glad.
Yeah, man.
He's a big inspiration for what I've done as a teenager. I watched so much Samoa Joe, and then apart from that, it's the guys like Hashimoto is a big inspiration. My wrestling, you'll see that I do the kick like that. I do a DDT. I do a brainbuster. And then it's the Kabashi, Masawa, Kawada, Taue.
Yeah.
Those four.
On that, I was meaning to ask, was like in like the dojo training in Noah, was like the training in like the what has become the successor to the Kings Road style, like was it what you expected from that, or was it kind of different in the modern day Noah version?
I still think it was very similar. They still impart a lot of. They're still in that. The way that Masawa trained is still sort of the way that they do it. I think maybe it's changing a little bit more now with the guys that they have contracted. They have a lot of guys that came from Osaka Pro, and maybe some of the smaller junior guys have progressed to heavyweight. So the style is a little bit different. It's a bit more junior based. But when I was first there, it was very much still that Kings Road style. And Taniguchi was head of training at the time. And if you watch him wrestle, he's very much heavyweight, style of wrestler.
Taniguchi's very underrated. He had a real fun series of matches with Go Shiozaki like a year ago, something around that. Yeah. Dude's very good.
Yeah, he's really good. And like he was in the army for like amateur wrestling and stuff. So like the way that he trained, lots of squats, sit-ups, all that sort of stuff. Like it definitely gets you fit, and there's definitely strict way of training.
That's cool, man. Yeah, as in vogue as like the New Japan strong style is, for me it'll always be Kings Road.
Yeah, I mean I'm a fan of both. I'm a big fan of both, and I think to be honest, the best person at the moment doing the proper way that New Japan strong style was intended, I think, is Zach, and he's a British boy. Yeah,
that's really interesting. Because, I mean, the last match that I saw from New Japan that I really felt had that was like Yuji Nagata and Shibata when they had that really sweet feud a little while back. But apart from that,
Shibata definitely wants that next, I don't know how to say it, but like second coming of Inoki style.
Yeah.
Where at any point he could finish you, whether it's with a strike or with a submission. And I think that's what Zach's been able to do recently. So it's cool to see.
Yeah, definitely. So cool to see Zach in that this year's New Japan Cup, like just actually winning it, like, and then main eventing the Sumo Hall against Okada. So nuts.
And maybe doing some of my favorite promos of all time.
Oh yeah, him and Taka. Taka, such a good good promo man himself. Jeez.
Yeah, incredible. But just, some of the things he said, they make me laugh, and I was like, it's good. Like him talking about his head not being able to wear caps because he has a peanut head, and Naito can, like, that stuff is hilarious.
So bizarrely hilarious, but just like perfect for Japanese wrestling.
It is, yeah.
I love it. All right, man.
Well, hey, man, before we get out of here, Jonah, tell us, like, all your social media stuff. Where can people get you? Where can people book
get the plugs. Get
you
the
need
plugs.
Shirt designs.
Hey, we need to get.
Yes.
Are you on Pro Wrestling Tees yet?
Not yet. So
we need to help you do that.
Yeah, hit me up. I can help you with the shirt design.
I
do all Cobbs. I do all Jeffs.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Fantastic. You can get me at JONAH_ROCK on Twitter. Same with Instagram. And then it's JONAH ROCK Pro Res on Facebook. I have JONAHROCK.BigCartel for all merchandise needs. But the
Everyone
big thing,
get on that.
obviously,
You have some awesome tee designs right now. Actually, I bought that that sweet Godzilla themed one that you put out a little while back. You got some rad shit. I need to see those on Pro Wrestling Tees.
Yeah, I'm hoping soon. So the thing with Pro Wrestling Tees is you have to have so much of a following on your social media. So I think I'm like maybe 200 people away from getting a Pro Wrestling Tees store. So follow me on those social medias.
Everyone follow this man.
Yeah, I have way too many followers, so I will use my followers to get you followers.
Please do. Because the big thing that I have is when I'm in the States or when I'm overseas in the UK and stuff, it just costs people a lot of money to get it shipped from Australia to those places. So if I had a Pro Wrestling Tee store, it would help me out.
Yeah, definitely. All right, man. Well, finishing up, thank you so much for coming on the show. Hey, super appreciate it. I've really enjoyed this chat as well. We don't necessarily want to be a question answer type of deal. So I've loved that there's just been able to be a nice conversation, dude. It's been great to reconnect.
Yeah, it's been great. Like I said, I enjoy talking about wrestling, and when I can talk to other people that are like-minded and have different views on wrestling and have seen like a bunch of different things, it always makes for a fun conversation.
Definitely. Yeah, man.
100%.
Well, we both
really appreciate it, man.
We all love wrestling, and I'm sure everybody out there listening to this also has a bizarre fascination with wrestling. So always great to chat the shit about the weird, obscure, and just passion of wrestling. The dumbness. Yeah. Hashtag dumbness, guys. All right. Thanks so much, man. Everyone stay tuned to what this man's doing. I'm sure it's just going to keep getting bigger and better from here. And yeah, I can't wait to see what next is going to happen in PWG. And have you got more stuff coming up in Europe?
I might. So at this stage, I always wait until things are fully confirmed, and then if you follow me on Twitter or Instagram, you'll see things get announced. But I actually have quite a few things popping up in Australia. Like I was saying, the Australian scene's starting to get a bit more vibrant. So I'm wrestling Nick Aldis next month for the NWA World Championship.
How is that happening? Isn't that just bizarre? You're wrestling for Lou Thesz's title.
Yeah, it's insane. It's something that's definitely on my bucket list, so I'm going to be able to tick that one off. And then, so we have more tours here, like the International Assault Tour. I'll be doing all 4 states, so I'll be busy here for the next couple of months, but I'll still be around the world as well.
Yeah, so for all of our Australian listeners as well, please come out, support the local scene. Let's all work together to make this the next big thing. And yeah, International Assault. Damn, man, it's so good to see so many internationals being used. And I hope that going forward that they can be used in a way that can help spotlight the awesome Australian talent that we actually have here, more than just internationals for the sake of internationals kind of thing.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
Wholeheartedly.
Awesome. All right.
Best of luck to you, Jonah.
Yeah, best of luck.
Thank you, guys.
Keep on killing it, bro. All right. Thank you so much, man. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Just in wrapping this baby up, I want to, of course, give a shout out to our podcasting network, the great guys over at Social Suplex. We've got the One Nation Radio show hosted by Rich Lardo. We've got Keeping It Strong Style hosted by Jeremy and my boy Josh Smith. We've got the Ricky and Clive Wrestling Show, the Outsiders Edge show hosted by Rance and Carl, and the Wrestling Wash hosted by Bathtub Caleb Conwin. You can check all of that awesome stuff out at the home base over at socialsuplex.com. Check out what's going on. The guys put a lot of great content together. And keep on listening to us. I'm Chris again. Check me out on the Instagram if you'd like. That's Chris Things. Jeremy, where you at?
I am at James Vanderbeek, JAIMS Vanderbeek on both Instagram and the Twitter machine. So hit me up if you need a t-shirt design, anybody, just let me know.
Yeah, awesome. All right, and again, you can check us out every 2 weeks, dropping on Wednesdays in America and Thursdays in Australia. We may be slightly later on today's episode because of all of the things. But anyway, thank you so much, guys. Much appreciated. We'll see you next time.
Peace and love.
Peace.
Well, a bird is